According to sources, a Canadian court has granted bail to Khalistani terrorist Arshdeep Singh Gill, alias Arsh Dalla. Dalla, a designated terrorist, is the de facto chief of the banned Khalistan Tiger Force. Sources say he was granted bail on the condition of furnishing a surety bond of $30,000. Now, what's interesting is that this development comes amidst India's push for his extradition. Indian agencies at first requested the Canadian government for his provisional arrest in July last year. This was declined. However, last month, the Ministry of Affairs stated that a court in Canada's Ontario had listed its extradition request for hearing and that it had sent separate requests to verify financial details as provided last year. Now, sources tell us despite the bail order, India will continue to follow up on the issue with the Canadian authorities. What's important to note is that apart from Arsh Dalla, 25 other extradition requests are pending with Canada. On one hand, the Trudeau administration has left no stone unturned to corner India, despite offering no proof to supplement allegations. On the other hand, Trudeau continues to foment terror on Canadian soil and continues to ignore India's extradition requests. Ashok Sajjanar, former diplomat, is joining us live. Ramneek Singh Mann, activist, also is live with us. Major General Dhruv Katoch, Director India Foundation, is joining us live. Adit Kothari, founder Indic Society, is also live with us on the broadcast. Ambassador Sajjanar, let me begin with you first. How shocking is this development? Arsh Dalla being granted bail, and what impact will this have on our efforts to get him back home to India to face trial?
You're right, Uday, that it is quite inexplicable, what has happened in Canada, because, we've been taking up these cases, and particularly after Arsh Dalla was arrested late last month or late October. Then we had been pursuing the case with the Canadian government. Of course, the request for his extradition had been placed more than a year before that, and even a red corner notice had been issued, in 22. There are, it's reported there are more than 50 cases of murder, attempt to murder, extortion, and so many other cases that are registered against him. And notwithstanding all of that, and notwithstanding taking cognizance of what India has been saying, what India has been demanding of Canada, that these elements, terrorist elements, and we know that Arsh Dalla has taken over the command of the Khalistan Tiger Force last year from Arshdeep Singh Gill, and even there he's been involved in so many crimes. He was, in fact, the manner in which he was arrested was that he was brought to a hospital with injuries, and even the car in which he was traveling and his partner were traveling, that also was riddled with bullets. So obviously the Canadian government knows that he is involved in unlawful illegal activities, and still no cognizance has been taken of what India has been demanding. Even as far as the killing of Arshdeep Singh Gill is concerned, what India has maintained, of course, that there is no evidence that has been furnished to us till date, but also that there have been informed sources who have said that these are gangland killings, gang wars that keep taking place there, and he could have been a victim. Arshdeep Singh Gill could have been a victim of one of those gang wars. Canadian authorities have not been able to give any proof whatsoever of India's linkage to that. So when there are dossiers that have been submitted that Arsh Dalla was involved in so many terrorist cases, he's been declared a terrorist in India. So without going into all that and releasing Arsh Dalla, I think that doesn't throw a very positive light as far as the Canadian government and its intentions are concerned, because I don't know what the purpose have been, but it is obvious that this action would provide even greater law and order problems as far as Canada itself is concerned. Of course, he is a problem for India because he gets hold of these, tries to brainwash these young Punjabi people who are coming from India, and trying to sort of, train them and send them back to India to carry out anti-establishment and create terrorist problems there. But this notwithstanding, it's a problem for Canada itself. So for its own security and safety, Canada should have been more mindful. But as I said, it is both shocking and inexplicable as to what Canada has done. India should, of course, continue the pressure on Canada, and also the fact that there is a red corner notice against Arsh Dalla. I think all avenues should be explored to keep the pressure on Canada so that the 26 extradition requests that you mentioned, that we are able to get people, particularly which are high on that list to India for facing trial and facing justice. For that.
In fact, quickly take that to Ramneek Singh Mann as well. Ramneek Singh Mann, does this development surprise you, or is it unsurprising given the fact at what the track record in Canada has been, the number of extradition requests that continue to stay pending with the Trudeau government, but bail as well now being granted to such an individual with such serious charges?
Well, this comes to me as no surprise, to be honest. As a matter of fact, organizations such as WSO and others have penetrated very, very deep into the Canadian system, whether it is the police, the bureaucracy, the diplomacy, the polity, army, or perhaps even the judiciary, if I may. So that is one major reason why you see growing number of radicals in Canada, growing number of separatists in Canada. It is because the system supports them. It is because the government supports them. They get support from the police, the army, the judiciary, the system, the administration. As a matter of fact, even the lawmakers, the policymakers, right up to the extent of the Prime Minister. A debate of the Canadian Parliament, if I can quote word to word, the leader of the opposition had referred to Jagmeet Singh as a fake, fraud and a phony. So that tells you a lot of where the government of the day in Canada is actually heading. Well, the judicial system is a very, very poor judicial system. We know of the Kanishka bombing case. It took them years and years altogether to punish, and it was hardly any punishment. And the likes of Talvinder Singh Parmar, who were the main accused, were celebrated as martyrs. And not long before, it was 20th of October last month, when Gurdwara Guru Nanak Darbar in Surrey celebrated him as a martyr. And they have actually allowed, they've allowed placards, they've allowed banners targeting Indian diplomats. So much so, they've had shows on the road depicting the murder of a former Indian Prime Minister. As a matter of fact, in Toronto, if I'm not getting it wrong, outside the Indian mission, they had held a sham court where they actually punished the Prime Minister of India, imprisoned him, and then they hung his, putla. And then, this is what has been going on in Canada. It is actually very quickly turning into a failed state. It is a Western country. It is supposed to be a developed country. So people are not coming out and calling out the fraud which is happening in Canada. But again, coming back to Arsh Dalla, he is somebody who's wanted in over 50 cases. Like Ambassador Sajjanhar mentioned, he's wanted in NIA cases. He's a designated terrorist. He has taken over the terrorist organization called Khalistan Tiger Force. So these people who are designated terrorists of India, and if you remember correctly, Justin Trudeau referred to Hardeep Nijar as an honorable citizen of Canada. No wonder, few years down the line, somebody may call actually Arsh Dalla honorable citizen of Canada. You never know how they're going to portray and to what extent they're going to support Indian, fugitives and gangsters. So these Canadian terrorists, these American terrorists need to be reined in by the system, by the government of the day, because it is their responsibility. Law and order is up to them. And not to mention that we, on a diplomatic level, have a MLAT, Mutual Legal Treaty. We have a Mutual Legal Agreement Treaty with Canada, which obligates them to extradite. There are 26 requests for extradition and 29 requests for arrest pending from India side, and these have been pending for good 5-6 years now. So Canada has been ignoring the global rule-based order, which mandates all responsible countries to act and behave in a way which conform to the global rules. So if they are bending their rules, they are breaking their rules to favor terrorists, to favor gangsters who have been troublemakers in India and who definitely are troublemakers in Canada, and they are prioritizing. Their priority is to protect and to harbor terrorists and criminals of in their own country, and putting at stake diplomatic relations
Yes.
with the largest democracy of the world. That tells a lot as to where their priorities lie.
Absolutely. Major General Katoch, come in here on this development, of course, what impact it will have on our extradition requests and efforts, and also what it shows about Canada's seriousness in tackling terror.
Thank you, Uday. Uday, let me give you my perspective. After Mr. Mann and Ambassador Sajjanhar have very clearly elucidated what the situation is, and why, in their view, Canada has done nothing about it. Now, I just want to expand on that. You see, if you're looking at a normal, any normal human being will state that, given the facts of the case, the Canadians should have been the first to hand over this person to India. And if they don't wish to hand him over, they should have tried him in their own courts and sorted out the issue. There are enough problems which each country faces than to have their own citizens creating terrorist problems in their own country, as well as targeting another country and vitiating the atmosphere between the two. So the relationship between India and Canada has deteriorated primarily because of these terrorist groups. So the question to be asked is, why is Canada still persisting with it? And in my view, I think they're doing it at the behest of their southern neighbor. It has to, I can't think of anything else, because they are being treated, this entire group is being treated as their strategic assets. The way Pakistan has created the Lashkar-e-Taiba and the Hizbul Mujahideen to pressurize India on certain fronts, these are pressure groups being put up in Canada and in other parts of the world to keep a tag on India, to keep India under pressure to influence Indian foreign policy. And they can be unleashed on India as and when the need arises. We have seen that happening just this year on the 5th of August in Bangladesh, where a duly elected government has been removed. And now you see the chaos where the United States claims to be the protectors of democracy. You have put in an illegal government there where genocide is being practiced right now. So as far as getting back this Arsh Dalla chap is concerned, no, that is not going to happen. He is not going to be returned to India. We may keep arguing about it till the cows come home. Why he won't come back? Because he is their strategic asset. And if they actually send him back, then what happens to their other strategic assets? They won't work for them. So the situation is very clear. We will have to handle this in some other way. Diplomatically, yes, the pressure should continue to be applied, as the ambassador very correctly brought out. But along with that, I think we need to take other measures. All right, whatever those measures may be, they could be economic or otherwise, and put a counter pressure on Canada and the United States. I hope that with the Trump administration coming in, there may be a change in policy, because these sort of policies where democracy is spoken of very highly but murdered every single day is the product of a democratic administration, of a Democrats' administration in the United States. It was done by Biden, it was done by Obama, and by all the Democrat presidents prior to him. So it is inbuilt into the DNA. So I think we will have to carry out changes there and a way to see what happens from the 25th of January when a new president takes over in the United States, how Canada will react then. So that is the larger game being played. And otherwise, I think Arsh Dalla is a very small fry. He's simply a tool. In my opinion, he can be done away with. The larger point is their support to these groups and why they're giving that support, and we need to address that. Uday.
Yes, Adit Kothari, of course, clearly the support is being given to these groups. What lessons should the world draw from this handling of the Arsh Dalla case by the Canadian authorities? Do you believe it's pretty much clear now, how serious they are in tackling terror and in tackling terrorists?
So I think, this takes us back to Hillary Clinton's, the famous speech in Islamabad where she spoke about snakes in your own backyard, the differentiation or the dehyphenation between good terrorists and bad terrorists. Ultimately, they are playing that game. General Katoch made the point of, the carrot and stick game at the end of the day. So they want to use the good terrorists, they want to shield them in the garb of human rights and freedom of speech, and patronize them and give them platform to basically slur out their sort of violent, feral agenda. So at the heart of it all is the problem is basically Western hypocrisy and Western double standards. And this basically goes out across the Five Eye partners, whether it be Canada, United States, or United Kingdom, even Australia and New Zealand today. You just have to see, how much of state patronage is being provided to these characters who are ultimately, they are nothing but they epitomize lawlessness, they epitomize criminality, and they epitomize, secessionism. And all of these five countries are essentially patronizing these people. If you look at the pure way that, AP police or RCMP basically conduct their employment drives, they go into the most radical gurudwaras and the most radical mosques in Canada to conduct their to basically conduct their employment drives. Malton Gurudwara is one of them, where there are celebrated, they celebrate murderers, murderers who had basically culled and barbarically killed 70 Hindus in one particular day. And those are the kind of gurudwaras where Peel police basically conduct their employment drives. So coming back to Dalla, I think I echo the sentiments of my fellow panelists. The guy has over 67 cases, I think, pending in India, of which I think he's been proclaimed offender in 14 of them. So the guy is never coming back to India. Let's face that. He's going to be patronized. He's probably going to be given Canadian citizenship very soon. And he will also become an honorable Canadian citizen one fine day, and probably be killed in a gang violence. And we will have the saga played out again, where the Canadian authorities are going to blame India for it.
Let me ask you a quick follow-up question then about what progress do you believe we're likely to make with regards to his extradition in the next few weeks and months, looking at this development?
So I think we've been pressing on for extradition for the past 39 years since the IC-182 bombings. And we've seen absolutely not an inch moved by the Canadians from that particular perspective. So I don't think we're going to see this guy extradited at any point. 26 extradition cases are already pending with the Canadians. And they will continue to play this game of carrot and stick. They will continue to harbor our terrorists as their fellow citizens, as their sort of patronized citizens, and nothing is going to move on that. Any seriousness that we saw from Canada was probably during the Stephen Harper government. But that's all gone down the hill. Now we've got all the three main political parties in Canada are basically playing. They've all been funded by the Khalistani sources. They're all being sourced. All the Khalistani interest groups in Canada are basically funding these political parties, whether it be the NDP, whether it be the Conservatives, or as we all know, the Liberals, of course. So ultimately, politically, there is absolutely no interest in any political party to listen to India's grievances and address our issues.
Okay, let me quickly go back across to Major General Katoch as well. Now, Major General Katoch, isn't this now something that the world should take attention of? The world should also be concerned at how Canada is dealing with terrorists and is dealing with terror in its own backyard. Will any global leader speak up or take cognizance, or organization?
Uday, very frankly, I don't think the world is going to take notice. I think it is important that India takes notice, and our External Affairs Minister has made those, I beg your pardon, has given out those statements, and so has our Ministry of External Affairs. The spokesperson, our spokesperson, has been quite vocal about it. I think what we can do now, because the world is not going to get involved, let's face that. You see, it suits their interest. It is the Western world. So I think we need to build up our public opinion through programs such as yours. You know that educating the people, I think, is a very powerful move. In the United States, we need to educate the public of the United States, because the only person whom the President of the United States will listen to is the public of the United States. That is where his concern lies. Can we change that public opinion? I think that is where, of course, we continue with the extradition effort, etc., and what Mr. Ramneek so very correctly brought out. All those actions will continue, but let us go a step further. Let us hit into the public opinion now. And the more people talk of democracy and upholding human rights, the faster they are likely to violate it. The Americans are a clear example. I admire them in that manner, you see, because the Americans are very focused about American interests. And where American interests are concerned, human rights, there's no such thing as human rights, you see. So they will use it, they will always use it as a tool against others, especially if there are weaker countries, if they are third world countries. But where American interests are concerned, no way. They will destroy democracy, they will destroy everything. Bangladesh is the clearest example, which we can see right now. Even in 1971, because I've written very extensively about that, when the genocide was taking place, the Americans supported the genocide. Today, again, a genocide is taking place in Bangladesh, except for India. Which country has raised its voice? So I think we need to be very, pragmatic. I don't think much is going to happen. India has to take the lead. Let us take the lead on two fronts. One, politically, I think the Prime Minister and the External Affairs Minister have done it. Diplomatically, our diplomats are doing it. Let us build public opinion in the US and Canada now. Hopefully, that will lead to a change. Uday.
Okay, Ramneek Singh Man, do you believe that's the best way to handle it? To continue to, continue this information overdrive, exposing the Canadian government, exposing their doublespeak on issues like this, and also, I have to ask you, what do you believe is the motive behind their government acting like this and shielding terror suspects and terror, accused individuals?
Well, is it not obvious? Because, the West has always wanted India to be in a liquid state or to be in a jelly state per se. They don't want India to solidify and become a strong nation which has independent foreign policy, independent defense policy, a developed, military industrial complex, a very strong. They don't want India. They don't want to see India in that position. And let me just try and get you into perspective, since you asked this question as to what is their motive or why do they want to do this, is because they have enacted a regime change in Afghanistan. They overthrew the Karzai government and replaced Taliban with an active air force, artillery, armored and huge weaponry to their credit now. So they've effected a regime change in Pakistan, in Nepal, in Myanmar, in Bangladesh, in Sri Lanka, in Maldives. What do you think their next aim is? Where do they think they are going to come next? I mean, they are aiming at India. They want us to be divided. They don't want to see a united, strong India standing up on its own 2 feet. And whatever little they can do, whether it's toppling governments or shielding or encouraging separatists or, calling terrorists, designated terrorists as their honorable citizens, they will do, and they will go to any extent. And it was rightly pointed out that, it's for their southern neighbor. And Canada is acting like a chotu for the Americans. The deep state is like, chotu, chalo ye karo, chotu. So actually, they're puppets, if I may, of the Americans. So, they are going to continue to do this. And there is a simple physics principle: an object at rest shall remain at rest unless an external force is exerted upon it. So we need to actually prove a force, not just diplomacy, but we have to take our measures beyond diplomacy so as to enforce upon them or to compel them to start taking action against these Canadian and American terrorists. They may have origins in India, but today, as of date, they should be referred to as Canadian terrorists and American terrorists who are putting at line the life of Indo-Canadians, of Indo-Americans, of Indians in India, and of Canadian citizens in Canada and the American citizens in the US. So this is where it is today. So they have to, again, like Adit brought it up, this was Hillary Clinton. When you rear snakes in your backyard, they're bound to come and bite you. So, well, once they start paying the price for it, they will probably realize what they are playing with or what they're dealing with. But as of now, they look at all these terrorists or separatists as their assets, and we need to actually prove to them that India is a stronger nation than they believe it is. India is much stronger and let's say a hard power and not a soft power or a jelly state that they can liquidify and they can, in their dreams, how they want to balkanize India. That's never going to happen. So that's something we need to prove to these people. And I think post 25th of January, reality will start to set in the Canadians.
All right. Let me leave the last word to Ashok Sajjanar.
Like to say is that I think there is a change of government going to take place in the United States. We see that Mr. Trump has spoken out very strongly against the presence and the activities of the deep state there. And we know that, whether it is Guru Patwant Singh Pannu or, support through the Five Eyes that is being given to Canada, it is principally as far as the deep state is concerned. We also see that Kash Patel has been nominated as the chief of the FBI, and he has also very strong views as far as the deep state is concerned. We see what scant respect that President Trump has for Justin Trudeau. We saw that in Trump 1.0 when he was very dismissive of Justin Trudeau. When there was a G7 meeting taking place in Canada, he didn't even stay for the final program, for the conclusion, for a meet with the press. He doesn't have a very high opinion as far as these liberal policies of Justin Trudeau are concerned. So I think all these are positive factors. We've seen that Trump has already threatened that he's going to impose 25% tariffs on Canadian goods. That is what has made Trudeau run scurrying to, Mar-a-Lago on Friday to have a meeting with him, and he's written a very effusive note on X talking about his meetings with Trump. But I think there is much more to it. So that is one particular aspect, and the personal equation and rapport that we have that India has with Mr. Trump, and also the fact that both of us are opposed in that sense to the shenanigans of the deep state. So there are possibilities, and we can work together on that. I think what Canada is doing, it is really shooting itself in the foot by taking actions like this, releasing all these criminals and gangsters, and I think it will have to face much more difficult times itself rather than creating any problem for India.
Right.
Because I also, just last word I want to add is that it is also vote bank politics that is, behind this very free, open support that Canada is giving to all these, gangsters, all these terrorists who have gone from there, because they get funding from there and they get support from there. So all the parties are involved in that, but it is going to really bite them and hit them hard, where it will really be difficult for them to bear that, and they will not know where to go.
All right. My thanks to our guests for joining us on the broadcast.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.